Welcome to the Awakening Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. We have another episode of Awakening versus Arnold and Brain Fitness. Welcome, Arnold. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks very much.
So we've got a lot of topics to discuss today, so we may as well delve straight into it. I suppose I mentioned that, I don't know, we were talking about health and the clouds and the fogs and everything the last time, and my son from the weekend got sick, so he's been out for the whole week, and just run down and everything, even getting sick, as well as coughing and everything. And the school sent a message, because there's like a group where we're all connected, and the message was, "At everyone, I repeat my request, leave your children at home if you can see that something is happening to someone or someone is already sick at home. Today, a dozen children with a fever, also about 40 degrees, returned home. We, teachers, are getting infected. More people are getting sick. I don't know if we are able to keep the school running." And I mean, I don't know about you, Arnold, but I've never witnessed that like that when I was in school growing up, where everybody gets sick like that. And there's a lot of people around the world, and I still believe it's been orchestrated, manipulated of the weather, toxins put into our body. And that's where kind of then you're removing the toxins, hence why we've got all these ailments.
Yes, it's. I cannot imagine. Well, that message getting that they have to close the school. I never even had the thing that the teachers were sick, and I never had that experience. Yeah, but you were also sick. Yeah, so with so it's there's something else going on. Yeah? I have each day when I walk, in the small shopping center where I work, there are 5 drugstores / pharmacies, and they're always crowded. It's like, what is happening here? Are we talking about a population which is more sick than healthy?
And if it's so contagious, I mean, I remember when we had the doctor, he used to be pumping antibiotics to everybody, but you'd rarely see the doctor sick either. And I mean, if it's so contagious and you've every single person with runny noses, sneezing, coughing, going into the doctor, you'd think they'd have a big glass bar, like, Hannibal Lecter, that you can't go in there because it's contagious. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, but I'm sure this is a topic which we will discuss more. But it's strange. But it's got to do with what we discussed about geoengineering, what is in the food, what is in the water. So that is a story to be continued, guys.
Next one, AI. I know we like to touch on it, but it's a big one. It's everything is connected with that, so I suppose you can run away with that one.
Yes, well, another topic which will certainly be continued. But on Monday we had the big news that Deekseek, a Chinese AI company, had much higher levels of performance than before the so-called great American things like OpenAI and all these other products. But their performance was better, but not only their performance was better, is they were way cheaper to do. Yeah? The training cost, which usually was 100 million, they got the training cost of 5 million. And so they did this with a team of 200 people, whereas OpenAI and all the other, they got thousands of people. And it's open source. So that created a huge mess in the stock exchange, that created, like, well, even in the US, like, hey, we are the world's leader in AI or not? It's like something else is changing there. Yeah. Actually, I think it was 1 or 2 days later that there was data from Alibaba who even performed better than Deekseek. So I don't want to go into all the comparing data and how, I don't know how it's done and how it works, but the most important thing, and that some very rich people lose some money, I don't care. But the main thing why I want to bring it up in today's show is it shows that all these big countries, China and the US, are working like crazy on implementing AI across the board and making everything faster, more user and whatever. So that there's no escaping to this AI thing because these superpowers are working on it. What do you think, Roy?
Well, there's a few things actually, because they make it look like it's so cheap. But the reality is you need big data centers for the AI, which in turn needs a lot of energy. So I think the whole lot's a big lie with how it's actually, because they store information. So if you go in and put it on your computer, then you go in your phone, it's still got all the information. It's not as if it's storing it on your computer. And, they're saying, okay, this deep seeker is free. Nothing's free. It's like we got the Facebook thing and everything. They're harvesting your data. They're using their data, which in turn is they're finding out more about you, and it comes back to bite you. So just remember that. And I use u.com, one that I paid for. I stayed well away from AI at the start because I was like, every single thing was just giving me lies and everything. But I found how to kind of use it by asking a nice question, help me with marketing, stuff like that, how to get in a good email and things like that. It's okay. But even this week, I went in, there's a load. There's the ChatGPT, there's the Deekseek R1 or 4. I've got Gemini, Genesis, loads of them. And I wrote him, who is podcaster Roy Collin. And yeah, it got some information, but every one of them was wrong. Every one of them was wrong. It was like 3 times best-selling author. It said, the speaking podcast. Most of them said 900 episodes. I've done 1,500 episodes, and I even have that on my LinkedIn. And the scary part is there's so many people regurgitating everything that they get from these things, and you can't trust it. You have to know. So what I'd say is be very careful. And like we were just touching on it, like before recording, about the amount of jobs as well connected with kind of technology and everything. And it is scary, like, because everyone's saying, it is great how advancements and all this different things and people aren't needed. I mean, the self-driving cars, I watched the Tesla recently. There was a recording. The guy is recording it because you see people falling asleep now because the car drives, and it actually tried to drive onto an oncoming car, and the guy had to correct it. So, I mean, it's very hard to determine what's true and what's not, but like, this looks scary anyway from seeing that. And the other thing is the amount of jobs, like taxi drivers, truck drivers, people in the supermarket. Like, a lot of them don't have other skill sets. And I think it's complete control. Like, you have to stay at home. Here's your allowance, but you must do exactly what we say. And it's like, what are all these people? We're not talking about thousands. We're talking about millions and millions and millions of people. What are they going to be doing?
Yes, and it's not only the what in our society we would call low-skilled jobs, like a driver. Google announced a month ago that they're going to lay off 30,000 people working in advertising. So it's more and more high-level jobs. Think about doctors, lawyers. All of these jobs are not only at risk, and most people will think, that won't happen to my job. Well, it will. And so it's like, well, even podcasting. And so it's like, it's everywhere, these things. But the main thing is, okay, that can happen, whatever. And the narrative used to be is like, yeah, we've had that when the internet came. Well, yes, people lost their job, but they're also creating new jobs. So we have a webmaster is something which didn't exist in the 80s and 90s. So now there are a lot of people do web design, webmasters, whatever. See, new jobs, so people can move to new jobs. But how can you move from being a truck driver into becoming an AI specialist? How can you move from being a cook in a restaurant, which is being replaced by a humanoid robot? You have great cooking skills, but what can you do with that? So I doubt whether there will be new jobs, but they're such high level jobs which you cannot just easily switch. That's what people forget. And the other thing what I would like to add is a discussion I had this week with a person out of India who worked in an AI company, and he says, Arnold, the main thing is, well, people will say, well, we will give them UBI, universal basic income. It's like, yeah, so, and suppose it is enough, yeah, it's there, so you can still live and eat. But he says that is not the case because people identify with their jobs. They identify with their work. Although you give them UBI, but doesn't mean they're going to sit at home and watch the grass grow. So it's like, he says it loses your identity, and he mentions the story, and I can recall it's well, it's not only a cartoon; it's a serious thing where it was in Japan, where if a man was fired, they would still go to work with their lunchbox because they didn't have the guts to tell their wife that they lost their job or their neighbors or their friends. But now this is going to happen with millions of people. So, and everybody has his identity tied to what you do. Go to a party, a meeting, a sports game, whatever. Is like, hi, I'm Roy. Oh, what do you do? Well, I make podcasts. Okay. But suppose now the podcasts are replaced by things. Hi, I'm Arnold. What do you do? I'm sitting at home.
Watching the grass grow.
Yeah. So that's off. And well, you know, for example, I'm working on brain fitness, mental health. It's like we need to figure something out to make all these millions of people do something useful or help them create a new identity. And it's not every truck driver who can become a healthcare provider to elderly people. So it's really, really something which I'm missing in the conversation. So everything is like, AI is great, and look, it's more faster and cheaper and this and that. And yeah, well, number one, it's very likely going to be used as our number one surveillance tool. It's the main tool to help the totalitarian new world order. But at the same time, it's like nobody's talking about the people who lose their jobs and what they're supposed to do, or maybe we have some training for them, whatever. Totally not out of the question. So it is the money, but it's especially also the identity and what are you going to do. So I hope that maybe some of our listeners have some interesting take on that, and we can discuss it because it's very, very needed.
And the reality is, if people are staying at home, they go to addictions. The mental health has already gone through the roof. It's just going to quadruple in a year the way the jobs are going. So yeah, no, but as another one that's going to just keep continuing, we'll keep delving on this. So like based on addictions and stuff, this is one that it's always been a kind of pet peeve for me, is the homelessness, because you know I've seen it in Ireland a lot, especially with the kind of credit crisis, and I've always kind of watched and tried to see how can we stop this. And like there's different kind of solutions, but like one is give dignity to the people. So Finland actually had a very good success rate. It was between 2008 and 2022, they got a 40% reduction rate. And the main thing was actually providing home, give them dignity first, but then provide the help towards their addictions, their mental health, and job training. So that is one of the things that can do. But I like to take it even a layer. Sorry, my camera is acting up, so apologies for that if I look like I'm flashing. Like I take it a layer more, and it's like, okay, how do we stop all this? Because there's a lot of people kind of donating and all this, and I mentioned the charities last time, so be careful with who you give the money to. But it's like, okay, how does this happen? And it's a lot of the time it's evictions and jobs. Like, I mean, you just mentioned Google giving away 30,000, 23,000 jobs, whatever it was. It's like a lot of them have mortgages. And sometimes, yeah, you get a severance package and that seems great for people. And sometimes they can go in and start their own business and life is great. But probably 90% they've run out of that. And then unless they can get in another job, then they struggle. They can't pay the rent. Maybe they've a wife at home or vice versa, minding the kids. And eventually they don't pay. The banks come in and say, thanks very much. And they just foreclose and get rid of you. So, like, do you give allowances for that? Do you give assistance? Affordable housing. I mean, the whole thing is, no, you can't build houses cheap because all the materials are gone up to the roof. Like, I don't know anybody who's, like, the big boys are making the money with all the commodities. How can prices that were, say 1,000 per square meter, then be 3,000 per square meter? It's like everything is manipulated. So you have to have affordable housing, because then people aren't, and it all leads to a knock-on effect. All these people that are homeless and everything lead to crime, which in turn then they put them into prisons, which costs a lot more. So you have to actually think of that as well. And most of the time it's down to dignity, that you actually allow the person to actually feel good. And if you look at the cities, evictions and all that, I mean, you can make tiny homes and everything. It's not to say if somebody's got a, £500,000 house and, they're no longer able to afford that. Yeah, but yeah, we understand maybe downsize, but not chuck them out on the street. And then they have to go into these, centres where there's 1,000 people and half them are drunk, and you don't know if there's abusers and everything, and there's people having to go in there with their children. That should never happen. No child should ever actually experience that. And every adult was once a child. So, due to circumstances that they didn't have control about. So we have to have, humanity, think dignity and respect them, and then but take the layers back. Stop evicting people. Stop throwing them on the streets. Stop having judgments that you're threatening to put it on the newspaper that a person feels so bad. I mean, I've seen situations where in Ireland, a woman with 3 kids living in a car, I had a guest on talking about that, and I read the book, and it was like heartbreaking. Like, it made me cry reading it, because I saw it. I knew there was so much of that going on. That should never happen. So we as humans don't look at the person on the street, and sometimes, yeah, they can be aggressive. Sometimes that they're drinking, but that comes down to mental health and addictions due to the depression of actually having hope, no hope in society. So we have to look at it like that.
Especially, I like to emphasize that it can happen to any one of us. Yeah, it not just an exception. And in the many years ago, oh, that's a drunkard, he lives on the street. But no, this can happen to Roy. This can happen to Arnold. This can happen to you and me. Yeah, so it's everybody. Yeah? And
I came close to it, Arnold. I came close because with the financial crisis, I got everything taken off me. They took I had houses in Ireland, but they took my personal belongings and everything was criminal. Everything they'd done was fraudulent. I went to court fighting it, but I couldn't win because the judges. But the only reason that my family helped me out, I would have been on the street, not everybody's got somebody that can help you. So I was that close to being thrown out in the street. So I know what it's like.
yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why I live abroad, because 8 years I lived together with my mother in her house to take care of her. And she died. I had to sell the house, but there was no housing available for me in the Netherlands. So, but even here, I'm now in Romania, it starts to get worse, because if I now go to my post box here in the apartment building, there are at least 3 or 4 typed out pieces of paper where they say, "Are you willing to sell your apartment?" That's happening here as well. There's a huge shortage of houses.
And I know this is a topic that we can delve into maybe next week, but the likes of BlackRock and everything, they were getting properties on pennies on the dollar, and now the rents go through the roof. It's all orchestrated. And just be aware of what's going on. So we move on. There's one that I'd like to touch on. Actually, we jumped to you there. Sorry, the census. That was one of the ones that I'd like to.
Yes. There is a video with it's called The Primordial Code. It's got now part 1, part 2, and they're working on part 3. But if you go to Marijn Poel's his website, you can find it. Highly recommend it. But there was an interview with him last week, and he said that basically our senses are a human. We used to have 5 senses. We think that's what the most people think is like, yeah. you're smelling, you're seeing, you're hearing, you're feeling, you're touching. But for most people, it's reduced to two. It's like seeing and hearing. Those are the main senses what we are using. But if those senses are what we use, then it's easy for AI to take over. AI can already hear the voice. They already can create voice. They can hear things. So it's like, and AI is closely related to these humanoid robots. So it's like we have allowed ourselves to be degraded from what we think are the five senses to two senses. And we don't care about the rest. But let me quickly give you an overview of what these 12 senses are. There's a guy called David Martin who wrote this down, but apparently already Rudolf Steiner, which is 100 years ago, already had the same thing. So we have the sense of touch. Well, that is what the kinesthetic one, which we know, but the sense of life, sense of movement, sense of balance, sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of hearing, sense of speech, sense of apprehension, sense of peripheral awareness, sense of stress, sense of focus. So these are really, really important senses which we do have innate in ourselves. But it's like what I'm saying with brain fitness. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so we already degraded from these 12, and maybe we even got much more senses, from these 12 to the basic 5 to the 2. But if you combine that with the AI, it's very, very dangerous, because that means and that is what's happening. That's what Roy and me are discussing, is like, it becomes so easy for AI to replace us.
I've seen a few videos, not just one, a lot of people where there's an AI voice coming from their, Alexa and things like that, what's going on. And also people have these doorbells, and there's a lot of, everything that's tracking you, it can go back to bite you. So just be very careful what you have in your house. I would never have that. I would never have that doorbell. Just personally, I don't believe that. I would go in and do the research and be careful what you're doing, because, a lot of these things, they're not there for. I want to kind of touch on. I was shocked because I had I earmarked this one for this weekend. It's about the salmon, because it's just about food in general, because I'd like to kind of touch on things like that as well, because I believe, the healthier you eat, the healthier you'll be, the better thinking and everything that you will have. But actually I saw that David had a guy on, and they were talking about all the foods, all the toxins and everything, and they were, showing about the energy drinks and everything. I mean, I know all about that, but I was shocked that they were actually showing all this, and like say Pringles and things like that, because they're toxic as you can get. And people, they're not aware. So it's nice to see, because he's got millions of listeners. But when I see that, I go, okay, this is great. And he was like really involved, and he was saying how they changed, got his wife involved in the conversation and everything. So, even his chef phoned the chef and said, hey, what oils are we using and everything like that. So I like to see that there's more people discussing things like that, because people, when you've got millions of people listening to this, a lot of people will pay attention. So that's good as becoming public. But the farm salmon is one that, like, when I'm shopping, you see the difference in the color and the taste and everything to wild salmon, and like they feed it. There's so much toxins in the food that they eat. They're in unnatural environment that are just in a little cage. They get
They fool them full with antibiotics, because otherwise they start fighting with each other and they get hurt or whatever. So that's why they get infections. So they give them antibiotics.
Exactly. And then the antibiotics go into us. There's a very high rate of, morbidity with them. So, and some escape, and it affects the ecosystem as well. But like, these are so toxic, and people just go in and just get the salmon and just think, when you eat natural pink wild salmon, there's such a difference. It's unreal. I can't touch the other stuff. So just you know, even if you like it a few days a week, cut down, have it 1 day a week, but just be aware of what they have and the feed that they're giving them, and they actually don't act normally as well. Like, I mean, and with, you've got this, like sometimes they say, look at alternatives and everything. I had a food truck before, and I wanted everything to be kind of, you know, MCS. I have it written down there, the Marine Stewardship Council. So MSC. And you have that on all the foods and everything. And I was buying the fish with that because, you know, it's supposed to be sustainable. And I was trying to do the right thing in life. And I was paying a lot more for the fish because of that. And there's a documentary, Seaspiracy, I think it's called. So yeah, Seaspiracy. And it exposed that. It's all a lie. And the reality is they're getting paid by people that give them the stamp. So they give the stamp, they're getting paid by these fishers. And the whole thing was a lie. So it's just, you have to take so many layers off everything to find out. But that was one I would encourage you to watch, that Seaspiracy. But with the salmon, like, just do that with everything. Just kind of look where it's coming from. Same with your eggs. I mean, I'll touch on that in another episode because that was something that I delved into big before. But it's like, when you know that there's so many diseases with these fish and it's unnatural inhabitant, and then everybody's buying it and thinking it's normal, and people are wondering why we're all sick all the time and there's so many cancers and everything. Just look at what they're putting into this, and they know it's cancerous. So how is it legal? So no government is protecting you, no agency is protecting you. You have to learn yourself, unfortunately, and protect yourself.
Yeah, we could even connect it to where we started off today about your son being sick and you and then the teachers. All of those lousy quality and infected foods impact your immunity. So that is why you're more vulnerable to becoming sick. Yeah, so just going to the thing is like, I buy the cheapest salmon. In the end, it's extremely expensive because it hurts your health.
Exactly. So we've seen this week as well that there was another aviation crash, and I know you're going to touch on that one.
Yeah, just quickly, is that there is something happening. I don't know what, people don't know what, but basically every day of the week there have been plane crashes in midair between a helicopter and a plane. The planes are jumping down. There was a few weeks ago. There was in Korea on an airport, and the plane just crashed into a wall or whatever. It's like, it used to be that flying was 100 times safer than driving a car. And now with this week, all these strange things are happening and people don't know whatever. So I just want to mention is like, folks, be careful what you're doing, because there is something happening. What it is, we don't know. And when we know, we will share it with you. But it's...
I'll have my thoughts on it, Arnold. I think before prices, because I remember, I don't know, was it the 90s or whatever, that, you know, you were flying and prices were expensive. You know, it was expensive to go from Ireland to Barcelona or whatever, £300, £500. And eventually, like, so Ryanair started to develop EasyJet, a lot of the prices went way down. So people were used to traveling to all these different countries. But what also happened then is people were actually, instead of being inside the box, when they go to the different countries, it was opening their mind, seeing what could be done, what systems were great, connecting with people, having a different thought process. And now everything with travel has gone so painful. It's like they're trying to stop it and lower it, and the costs are going up, and they make it so, like, no, before you could go for an hour, now you have to go nearly 3 hours beforehand because you don't know you're going through the border, the controls. You can be 2 hours sometimes. I mean, I remember, especially in the States, it was like, you'd see somebody old and they're standing in the queue for a couple of hours. And she's like, that's not right. That's not normal. And it's like they're just taking out the joy of traveling. So now people, they're going, I don't want to go away for the weekend because you're spending half the time in the airport. And
that makes sense.
and then the fare factor oh, it's not safe no more. But that then keeps people not traveling, which doesn't have the connection or understand what's going on because they're not sharing anything. The only people are learning is through like Telegram groups and different things. It's very hard to find out the truth. Or even TikTok, sometimes you learn information will never be on the mainstream. So I think they're trying to stop us from flying around the place.
Well, that could fairly well be the case. And I'm taking it one step further, link that to the 15-minute cities. Yeah, so for those of you that know, the 15-minute cities is to try to keep you inside the city, and within that range of 15 minutes, you can shop, you can buy your food, you can go out, whatever, but you're not supposed to get out of that 15-minute zone. So this would support that.
Absolutely. And like that might sound crazy to some. I encourage you to go away and check it because they've done it in a few places. They're pushing it hard. And I'm in Łódź, the center in Poland. It's one of the bigger cities. And they were having a meeting, the city, about this. So they're trying to push this around the place. And it's like whoever accepts that is like shame. You're basically, you're into a little concentrate. It's like a FEMA camp that you're going, within 15 minutes that you have to go in and you get massive fines in if you go outside the area. So don't ever tolerate that.
Well, I only need to mention what's happening in China. Look at all these big cities in China. It's already existing there.
Yeah. So one that I'll touch very quickly is kind of, because a lot of people, they're doing kind of what we're doing. They're sharing the information. They're going out. They're trying to make the world a better place. And even sometimes businesses or whatever they're doing, they might be doing natural health and things like that, and they'll be attacked. And I know for myself that you're going to get attacked. I mean, there's so much negativity out there. And what I say is how I've survived this, because I've seen a lot of podcasters and they kind of throw in the towel and say, I'm not doing this no more. They can't tolerate it. You could have 95%, maybe 99% of people love what you're doing, give nice comments and everything. But you always have these, I call them Bellino mates, that will come in and write and just destroy you, bash you. If you're talking about, say, chemtrails, you get 50% of the people that are responding, they're trying to attack you and bash you. And I say, don't give them fuel. Don't put fuel on the fire, because you will never get them to change their mind. A lot of the time, if you go in and actually check the profile, they won't have their picture. Maybe it's AI bots, don't know. But there's also a few people, they'll have mental issues or whatever. And you do not engage with these people. You do not. If it's really abusive, report it, delete it, or sometimes just leave it if it's not that bad. But do not engage in the conversation. And what you do is put your energy to all the lovely, nice comments, because that's what's going to fuel you. And unfortunately, like Arnold, if you got 100 nice comments and one negative, you're okay because you concentrate. But unfortunately, the majority of the population will just think about that, and they won't be able to sleep because they're thinking about someone who's attacked them, or they'll engage in a conversation, and it's like pissing against the wind. It's not going to do you any good. So what I say is don't engage and stay in the positive.
Yeah, that is extremely positive for anyone. Yeah, whether you're a podcaster or a business person or doing something which is not normal, which people call. Yeah, it's extremely important, and we have this. Unfortunately, we have this built in. It's called the negativity bias, where, yeah, like you said, if there are 99 positive comments, you focus on the one bad. Yeah? But know that is part of your system, but then just ignore it and read the 99 others. Yeah? So it's like, yeah, it's. I think these days, well, number one, because it's technology which facilitates this, because before all this social media, it was not possible to do that, because you had to send a physical letter with a stamp and know the address and then send the comment. But now, yeah, this thing is the negative side of positive things. Whatever, it's just possible, but at the same time, it's much easier to criticize someone. It's basically a lazy approach. It's like, And it doesn't matter whether you criticize a podcaster or you criticize a football team or you criticize a politician or a doctor or whatever, but it's like, hey, what are you doing yourself? What are you putting out there in the world? What are you doing to make your life, your family, your community, your city a little bit better? It's much easier to criticize, folks. Because criticize, that's why I say it's a lazy approach. It's like, oh, that's bullshit. That's not going to work there. Yeah, but what are you doing? So engage with the constructive, the creative people. And again, it doesn't have to be game changing or changing the world. It can just be help an elderly person in your street. Yeah, help them with going to the supermarket and buy some food. Huh?
And just on the kind of social media scene, what I would encourage people, when you see something that you like, give it a heart, give it a thumbs up, give it a nice comment. If you like something, say why you liked it, because people see that. And the other advantage of that is if somebody is doing something that's actually positive for humanity, you might think, sure, I can't do nothing, I don't have a big circle or whatever. But by you giving a heart or a little comment, a positive comment, the algorithms then will start showing it to more people, which in turn will have a nice ripple positive effect. So everybody can make a change. And that's what I would say. So moving on, I suppose, talking about criticism, as you just mentioned there, like we heard in a hearing with JFK. RFK, sorry.
JFK got.
Yeah, there was this hearing to become a government official where they grill you and try to find, again, it's that negativity bias, find faults instead of looking at the positive side someone is trying to do, whatever. I don't want to talk about RFK or what's happening there right now. But the main thing is there were lists. You can find them. It's not difficult to find. There was a list of the senators who were grilling someone else. Again, it's criticizing someone else, but what do you do yourself? Well, these senators, they collect money. They collect money from the big pharma. There were lists, and I think the lowest amount was something like $80,000, up to $1 million or whatever. It's like, these guys literally all get paid by Big Pharma. Why is a senator, an official part of your government, why is he paid by Big Pharma? Yeah? So it's not RFK who's guilty or not, or a bad guy or a good guy. But it's like, if you are an independent government official, why you're being paid by Big Pharma? That's not right. That is not independent. You're not independent. And we talked in the beginning. I want to link it to close your session. Is like, in the beginning we talked about taxi drivers losing their jobs, advertisers using their jobs, whatever. But it like, these guys just get this money in addition to their salary. If you get a minimum 80,000, the taxi driver would be very happy with that 80,000. I would be very happy with that. Roy would be very happy with that. So it's like, but they get it as an extra. That tells us something about how corrupt our democracy has become.
And the other thing as well, it was a thing that I copped years ago. I was looking at all the grants. This is Ireland, but I'm assuming this goes on everywhere as well, because sometimes they don't know. And they were giving grants to Big Pharma and big food companies, like when they should be given to startups. Why would you give a grant to multi-million profit companies? That's money that's coming back around, and it's like, maybe the guy is bringing the suitcase or whatever, but it's not normal and it shouldn't be happening. So yeah, but I mean, that's another one that we'll be touching. But I just finally, because I mean, being a podcaster and I've got 6 shows, but this week one of my episodes on the meditation podcast got removed, and it was it was basically a meditation, and it was about 852 hertz and then the 432 hertz, which like just from talking, like the hertz are good for you because even the music and a lot of the stuff is actually being infiltrated as well. So it's not kind of giving you the feel good factor as before. But I knew this was a good one that I've got, and I even listened to it myself. It was removed. I had that up since June the 1st, 2022, and they removed it this week. And it's not the first one they've removed. They've removed a few of the ones like that, or as I'd uploaded, they'd stop. So I said, I had to stop. I had a load of very good ones like that. I had to stop because they removed it. But there was never one that was so far back. And the other thing is, on my Awakening podcast, I had another episode that was removed. I mean, you don't hear Joe Rogan or any of these people getting episodes removed. Like, why are they removing me? I'm a podcaster. I'm supposed to freedom of speech. I mean, I'm not saying, hey, everything I say is true. I always say that. Just go in, do your own research. But I can actually just kind of tap a little on the shoulders and maybe open a book on this. Just check it out. Just maybe perhaps just listening to what we're discussing. And, we're not saying, hey, everything we say is gospel. But why are they actually removing everything? And I mean, I've touched on the censorship that I've got, like, shadow banning, and like one of my friends used to give me all thumbs up on Facebook, all removed. He went in and said, I knew I gave a thumbs up to that, and he went through the whole lot. Everything was removed. I've been kicked off a YouTube with my Awakening, Linktree, even LinkedIn at one stage. And it's like, there's something going on when they're like, we're touching something right when they're removing us. So it's just to let people be aware of what's going on. So Arnold, as always, thoroughly enjoyed it. They'll find you at braingym.fitness and me, awakeningpodcast.org. What we'd like is on my awakeningpodcast.org, there's like a form there. So if you have anything that you'd like us to discuss, we're happy to go into it. We're going to keep doing this weekly because I think it's all relevant topics. But thanks again, Arnold.
Great. See you next week.
Okay, take care. Bye.